Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to our investor update. I am Brandon Thomas, investment advisor at Mayberry. I'll be your host and presenter for today. I will be bringing you presentations on Dollar Financial Services and Supreme Ventures Limited. If this is your first time checking us out, consider subscribing to the channel. Remember to hit the bell to receive all notifications. We upload content like this every week. Before I get started, I take this moment to remind you if you are looking to expand your portfolio or embark on your first investment journey, Mayberry can place you on the track to financial freedom. Follow us on social media at Mayberry INVJA to learn more. Now we'll be looking at Dollar Financial Services. We'll be looking at the September 9 months results, and we see where revenues have increased by over 170%. That has flowed to the bottom line, where we've seen net profitability increase by 335%. We see total assets are now over 1.3 billion, and we see where their loan book has grown also to over a billion in a very short period of time. There's a current price of about $3.22. That leads to a PE ratio of about 29 times. So a bit rich, in terms of the valuation, but dollar has been growing quarter over quarter, and they should grow into that valuation very, very soon. Moving on to the next slide, we see where that quarterly profit movement, there has been consistent growth over the last 4 quarters, and coming out of the IPO where they raised some funds and were able to unlend that money, we've seen further growth coming from that. They've been very consistent with their results, and I expect that to continue in the near future. Moving on to the next slide, we see the share price movement. They would have obviously IPO'd at $1 per share earlier this year, and it went to a high as $3.74. Now it's at around $3.22, thereabout, and dollar has been, in that 310 to 350 band, for the last couple of months, and we see where that should continue to creep up month over month as people continue to expect better and better results from dollar. And I'll get into why in just a short bit. When you look at what dollar has done in just a short space of time, where they've been able to really be efficient, keep ECL and their non-performing loans in single digits, they're able to raise the IPO funds and be able to unlend that right away. And since then, they have gone back to do a debt raise, where they upsized from $1 billion to raise $1.5 billion. Now, they have earmarked those funds to do certain activities, one being funding a new subsidiary, Ultra Financier, which will be an asset-based lending company. Also, they'll be using the funds to seed other locations, the Portmore location. They'll be going into Trelawney very soon, and they said Maypen will come shortly after. In addition to that, they'll be also growing their loan book by unlending the majority of the money. They're also looking to expand regionally. They're already in Guyana, and they're going into other territories like Barbados, St. Lucia, and Bahamas, where they're looking into it just to make sure it is viable and they are in accordance with all the laws and regulations of those territories. They will be using $100 million from the $1.5 billion bond raise in order to further seed their Guyana location, and that also will further grow, revenue and profitability moving forward. I'm very bullish on dollar. I expect big things from them, especially with the new subsidiary. That is something that I believe is the first of its kind in Jamaica, where you're now able to borrow against your Rolex, your car, your house, anything that can be used and readily valued. They will be willing to lend money against it. So that is a whole new revenue line that will be coming dollars' way. Kadeen also in a recent interview spoke to an acquisition that is on the cards in about 3 to 5 months. And he mentioned that it's a company that has a loan book So it tells me that they'll be buying, another company, in the microfinance space, and that should obviously grow their loan book exponentially, along with the money being unlended from the bond that was raised. So very bullish on dollar. I predict that over the next 12 months, dollar should appreciate anywhere between 40 to 60%. So investors, if you have more questions, you can always reach out to us at Mayberry and speak to an advisor. Okay, so now we'll be looking at Supreme Ventures Limited, one of my favorite companies on the market, and we see where you know we're looking at the 9 months as at September. We see where year over year they have increased their revenues by 18%, which has led to a net profitability increase of about 34%. Right now Supreme Ventures are operating with total assets of over 17 billion, shareholders equity of over 4 billion, and we see where the current share price is at about $26.64. That PE is about 24 times, so over the main market average, but Supreme Ventures is the best mix, in my opinion, of a growth opportunity and strong dividends. Supreme Ventures has so many outsized opportunities under their belt, and I'll get into that some more. But we believe here at Mayberry and myself, as an advisor and an analyst, that Supreme Ventures will do well in the next 12 months and further along in the future. So moving on to the next slide, we see the quarterly movements, and they have been doing well. There's been some, inconsistencies, and especially in the last couple of quarters, the payout has been moving up significantly. Supreme Ventures has taken the decision to have higher payouts. Their direct costs have increased significantly. But as I said, when I get into some of my outlook as to why I believe Supreme Ventures will grow, you will see where I believe this is justified. So moving on to the next slide, we see where the stock price at the beginning of the year, trading at about $17, and that increased significantly, all the way up to $33.73 at the high of this year, and currently trading at $26.64. So it tells a story of how bullish persons were at the start of the year on the growth prospects for Supreme Ventures, and I believe that should continue. So I want to get into some of the reasons why Supreme Ventures is a top buy here at Mayberry. So these were great results despite major sporting events being for the most part in their off season. During the summer period, there was no EPL, no Champions League, no NBA going on until the last part of the quarter. Now moving into this quarter, the December quarter, we believe that sports betting will increase significantly. All the major sports are in season. All the major footballing leagues, NBA is back, and World Cup is this quarter. And sports betting is the fastest growing segment under Supreme Ventures. So once these sports are on play, we believe that people will get out there, place their bets, and continue to increase revenue. We look further to how they have been growing their mobile channels significantly. That is the focus. And they even had GLI certification recently, which now poises them to expand not just regionally, but globally. Now they have a recognized gaming platform that can be utilized across the world, quite frankly. We also see huge growth prospects in Caymanas, where they'll be hosting the Motet Mile in December, and we believe that this will, bring about a lot of activity to Caymanas. A lot of turnout will come. It will be the richest purse in history, and that will bode well, for just the whole excitement and the advertisement of Caymanas to get out persons who don't normally go to the track. Also, Supreme Ventures is currently, as I mentioned before, the best option in terms of a mixture of dividends and growth prospects. Consistently, they pay anywhere between 4 to 5% in terms of a dividend yield, and I think only Carreras on the market beats that. quarter to quarter, you can expect your dividends from Supreme Ventures like clockwork. And in terms of their growth prospects, as I mentioned, their mobile channels, their gaming platform, their Caymanas track, which has so much potential. They have a joint venture with Main Events to produce events, especially on the Caymanas ground, which has a lot of untapped potential and a lot of land to be used. They will also be going into microfinancing, which has huge potential already. We just spoke about DOLLA and how they've been growing. There's always a need for capital amongst individuals and companies. And they have also been doing a lot of growth in the lottery segment. Year over year, that was up 20%. So lottery is still growing. Sports betting is growing significantly. And their other major segment being PIN codes, which is basically phone cards. More and more persons are getting phones. People are getting phones at younger ages now. And I believe that, PIN codes will continue to grow steadily year over year. So, despite the direct costs increasing, I believe that all these outsized plans that they have for Supreme Ventures will cause outsized returns. So I'm very bullish on Supreme Ventures as well. And we at Mayberry believe it is definitely a buy. Okay, so that concludes our presentations for today. And now I'll be getting into my investor tip. So today I'll be touching on leveraging. And using leverage is a very useful tool to growing your portfolio significantly. Here at Mayberry, we offer what I believe is the best margin product. We have competitive interest rates. It's very flexible. There's no pressure for you to immediately pay back month to month. And once you decide to go that route, I would advise you, firstly, to speak to your advisor so that you can work out, all the details around our margin product. But as I said before, leveraging is a useful tool to grow in your portfolio. You will be able to access funds that you wouldn't otherwise have in order to invest further and to create returns. Now, just for an example, imagine you have a portfolio valued at over, let's say, $1 million, and there is, an IPO coming up, and you don't have enough cash in order to participate. After you've read the prospectus, you believe it's a good opportunity, and you decide, instead of selling my portfolio or a portion of it in order to fund the investment, I'm going to borrow against it and invest in this IPO opportunity. Now, if all goes well and the share price, when it's listed on the market, goes up significantly, you'll be able to sell a part or all of the proceeds and then pay back your margin within a relatively short space of time. Now, that's just one example. Other persons use the margin product for other types of investment outside of the equity and market. It can be used for anything that you see fit that will continue to grow your cash base. So leveraging, as I said before, great tool, but it's something to go into very carefully, as you don't want to be over leveraged and not to go into opportunities that you haven't fully researched and worked out all the details. So once again, speak to an advisor, and I'm sure we'll be able to walk you through that process. So to our viewers, thank you all for being a part of today's investor update. We urge viewers to follow us on social media to keep up with all things forum related. This includes guest speakers and more. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mayberry Investments Limited. Thank you to all our viewers for tuning in today. Keep safe, and remember, wise investors, slow and steady wins the race.